Good morning, family, and welcome back to Tuesday Transformation Tidbits, where every week we're fueling your faith, we're sharpening your focus, and we're pushing you into the next level of your life. This week, starting today, we're starting another 4-week series called Hidden Among the Stuff, but Still the One. And I want everyone this morning to realize that there's some stuff that you have hidden yourself in the midst of. But I want you to realize on today, but you still are the one. You are still the one that God is calling. You are still in the one that God is sending. You are still the one that God desires to use in this season. In this next series, we're going to be navigating for the next couple of weeks and looking at Saul. We have had the pleasure of looking at First Samuel with Elder Lorraine Land, and we've been finding some jewels in the book of First Samuel. Can I just tell you on this morning that that book has been blessing me? It has been challenging me. It has been showing me so many different nuggets that's in the Word of God that make it applicable to myself. I want to tell you, you need to get into this series, this challenge that we're doing with First Samuel. I guarantee you it will bless your soul. Today we're on First Samuel, the 21st chapter. So when you get done with me, go back and read First Samuel, the 21st chapter. But anyway, let's go back into Tuesday Transformation Tidbit. Just want to put that out there this morning. So this morning we're going to be looking at Saul. And we're going to be looking at the point that Saul was chosen by God. But what he did, he was found hidden among the stuff. How many of you realize that you have been chosen by God, but you are hidden among your stuff? You're hidden among the stuff because you feel as though that you're not qualified, even though you were chosen. For the next couple of weeks, we're going to be dealing with First Samuel, the 10th chapter, and we're going to be looking at the 20 to the 26th verse. When we look at this grouping of scriptures, this grouping of scripture was so enriching to me. It was a movement of transformation for me. So when I looked at this, there were 4 distinct C words that I pulled out. There was a call that Saul had. There was a concealed that Saul had. There was a confront that Saul had. And then there was confirmed that he went through. And I want you to know on today, same as with Saul, it is the same with us on today. Some of us, we're hidden in the stuff. But I want you to know, in the midst of you being hidden in the stuff on today, that God has called you. God is moving you to the next level of where you want. So on today, what we're going to do is we want to identify some hidden purposes that you have. We want you to confront the internal stuff that you have on the outside. We wanted you to embrace, the divine position, even if you feel as though that you overlooked. Even if you feel as though that you're unready to do what God's called you to do. I want you to understand on today that God has called many of us in this year of 2026. And there's a couple of months left. And are you still hidden in the stuff? Do you still feel as though that you have been overlooked? Do you feel as though that you're still unready to do what it is that God has called you to do? Week 1, we're going to actually be dealing with that you're chosen, but you're covered. God chose you, but he's also covering you for such a time as this. So when we begin to look at chosen, but being covered, as I said, we're going to be looking at this morning, First Samuel, the 10th chapter. And we look at First Samuel, the 10th chapter, we're going to actually be looking at verse 21b. And when you look at verse 21b, what it does, it tells you, finally Saul, the son of Cush, was taken. But when they looked for him, he was not to be found. When you look at this portion of it, what it is that Samuel was coming, because remember the people were calling out for king. Samuel was coming for Saul to be the king. But Saul felt as though that he wasn't ready at this particular time. So what he did is Samuel was calling, he was picking people by lots. And he got to Saul and he said, Saul, I'm calling you. But Saul was nowhere to be found. He moved from where he was to be hidden. So that I guess he thought that if he was hidden, that Samuel wouldn't remember that he was going to crown him king. So when we look at this, we found so many different things that were going on in this chapter. But there is something powerful about being chosen on this morning. When you look at God chose you, he called you out for a specific purpose, a specific plan, a specific detail that he wanted you to fulfill. That's an honor. That's a pleasure. But I understand that many of us, and I say us on this morning, many of us feel that we're not ready. So have you ever had a moment where God just set you up? He started having people call you in rooms that you're not even near. He started having people reaching out to you. He started doing things that, out of the ordinary. You go to a conference or whatever, and you're sitting there, and all of a sudden God connects you with someone that sees something in you that's calling out your purpose in you. And you be like, I was just coming to be hidden in the crowd. I was coming just to sit in my seat. And here it is, God set you up again to do something. Have you ever thought about there was opportunities that really started appearing before you? You were getting excited, but yet and still you were still scared. You can be excited and scared at the same time. If you look at Saul, he could have been excited and he was scared at the same time. But what you find out and what we look at, that some of us are still in the place of Saul. Some of us, we're in that place. You see, Saul found himself being chosen by God, but he didn't have the confidence enough to carry what God called him to carry. Some of us are chosen by God this morning, but we are like Saul. We don't have the confidence on the inside of us to carry what God is calling us to carry the purpose God is calling us to have, to carry the anointing that we walk in. We don't have enough confidence to say that God has called me and not people have called me. So because God has called me, I'm going to walk in to the thing that God has called me. So some of us are Saul. So if you will allow me this morning to call you Saul, I know that your name is different this morning. Those who are listening to me now and those who are going to come back and listen to the replay, I know you have a different name. But this morning, I want to put all of us into the Saul name this morning, because some of us, even including myself on this line, we're hidden in the stuff. Yes, God is covering us, but some of us, we're just hiding because we don't walk into. We're hiding because we don't have the confidence enough to carry what came with being called. And I want that to simmer in your spirit this morning. We don't have the confidence to carry what came with being called, because there is a confidence that we have to have in knowing that God was the one who has called us. So when we begin to look at this, we gotta understand on this morning as we go through this whole point of being called but yet covered. When we look at the text and we read at the text, it's easy to see that Saul's selection, he was selected randomly because they were casting lots. So there was a process of elimination that was going on. But even in the process of elimination, Saul, I'm speaking to you this morning. I want you to know that God was in the details. So even in the process of Saul, of you being called this morning, God is in every detail. He has planned out everything in your life. He understands your shortcomings. He understands the things that you're going through. He understands the family that you are, but he called you just as you are. So you got to look at, when we look at this book in 1 Samuel, the 10th chapter, it looks and it talks about every tribe. It talks about every family, every clan was brought forward. And in that divine narrowing thing down, Saul was identified. This morning, you are listening to me whose name is Saul on this morning. You have been identified. You have been called out. When we look at this, Saul was called out of the tribe of the 12 tribes. He was countless families. He was called out of generations of people. God located Saul, the one man from the smallest tribe there, and he said, that's the one. I want you to know on this morning, souls that are listening to me, God has located you where you are. He has identified you for where you are. There is no place that you can go that you can hide from God. And I want you to know that He said that you're the one this morning. You see, God's choices are never an accident. So you on this morning who are saying to your souls that are on this line this morning, who thinking that God made an accident when He called you, God doesn't do any accident. He does everything intentional. He does everything that's on purpose. Even when it looks like it's ordinary, the Father, He comes with His hand and He orchestrates every detail behind the scenes. So every detail in your life, the Father has organized. He has orchestrated for you for such a time as this, so that you will know that you have been identified and you have been called for a purpose. I know we're coming to the end of the year, and God called you this morning. Called you at the earlier part of the year. He called you this morning too to rise and to get up. But nonetheless, He called you at the early part of 2026, and He gave you what to do. And you have been saying that I'm not worthy. I don't have the confidence. I'm not the one that you called. But I want you to understand that you have a couple of months left before 2026 has been concluded. And God is saying that you are the one, Saul. I don't do things by accident, but I do things intentional. I have an intentionality of why I called and why I'm dispatching you to go to do what I've called you to do. There is a grouping of people who are standing, waiting for you to come into alignment with what the Father is calling you to do, for you to walk into purpose. I want that to simmer in you this morning, because this, when I was writing this, was blessing me to the point that I had to understand, regardless of what people think, regardless of what people's mindset are about you, that God loved you enough. He created you to be called for a purpose and to walk into the purpose. So when we look at this on this morning, you see, Saul, he didn't choose himself. God chose him. And He chose them through divine order. He was chosen, but he was covered. Some of us were chosen at the beginning part of this year, but God had to cover us to a certain degree. Before the people saw him, God had already had His eye on Saul. Before they knew his name, God was speaking about him in crowds. And I want you to know, God is speaking about, He's dropping your name in certain crowds. He's dropping your name in certain places that you go. You see, heaven had already whispered into eternity and told him who you were. So God is dropping your name. You know how sometimes we drop our cards for somebody to call us, but God is saying, I'm dropping your name. And when I drop your name, I create a crowd that's going to look for you. And that's how God works with you. You may not be seen. You may not be validated. You may not even be celebrated by people yet. But I want you to know that you have already been identified. And God is about to uncover you. You're covered not because you're forgotten. And I want some of us to realize that you're covered not because you have been forgotten, but because you're being formed. God's preparing you. He's forming you to do what it is you're calling. You're hidden not because God is punishing you. There's no punishment that comes along with the hidden position that you're in now, but God is protecting you. He's protecting from the wolves that are coming at you to devour you. He's preparing you in private because you need strength to stand in the public arena. So I want you to understand on this morning that there's a portion where God hides you too. And there's a portion that we're not hiding ourselves. But when God hides you, He's not hiding you for punishment, but He's protecting you. He's preparing you. He's forming you in the private arena so that you have strength to stand in the public arena. You see, God's selection process is often a selection process that really is quiet. It's a process that's private, but it's a process that's intentional. God is intentional in the things that he does, and he wants us to move in a place or on a point that he's intentional in what he does. So I want to speak to the Sauls again that's on the line this morning and let you know that there's a Saul moment that's coming in your life. I don't know when the moment's going to come, and I didn't come up here to tell you that it's going to come tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. That's not my purpose. But I'm calling to let you know that there's a Saul moment that's coming to you. God is choosing you, and choosing may come before you get the confidence that you need to walk in it. But I want you to know that you have the capacity to do it. But God, when God chooses you, he chooses you before you get the confidence that you need to do it. But in the midst of it, you're never before your capacity. You see, he knows what he placed inside of you. And some of us are saying, no, I can't do this. But God knows what he's placed inside of you. You may be doubting about your timing in your life because there's so much that is going on in your life. But God's not doubting for you right now. God is preparing you for that Saul moment, for that moment that they're going to be looking for you. And sometimes he calls you before you think you're capable. And God has a funny way of doing that. He'll call us before we think that we're capable because he wants us to be obedient before we start overthinking and talking our way out of it. I know for me, that is most definitely because I can talk my way out of a lot of things and I can overthink things that I should not be overthinking, but that I should just be obedient to the will of God for you. And I know some of you Saul that are on the line, you are just like that also. God has to call us. He has to get a hold of us before we begin to out-talk ourselves out of a situation. So when we begin to look at this, I want to give you a tip this morning. This week, I want you to stop asking why God picked me. Don't ask that anymore. Don't be shrinking back. When I wrote that, I said, I got a lot of nerve. But don't shrink back because you can't see what the Father sees. Don't shrink back because you feel as though that you're unready. You're not qualified to do whatever it is that God is calling you to do. You see, when God selected you, he was not voting on you, but he was declaring your destiny. And I don't know who needs to hear that this morning. When God selected you, he wasn't voting as Samuel was voting. He wasn't throwing out lots to find out where it was going to fall. But God, he was declaring your destiny. And even for Saul in this chapter, God had already knew that it was going to be Saul. And some of you, God already knows what he wants you to do, but he merely wants you to line up and come into alignment with what the Father has called you to do. You don't have to prove that you belong in any arena that you're in, but you have to believe that you have been chosen. And that's something that's big, that's not small, because a lot of us, we begin to prove that we belong to him like man can validate us. But you just got to believe that you're the one that was chosen. You're the one that was called. You were the one that was sent to that place to declare a word. And when God sends you, he equips you. You may not speak as someone else speak. You may not carry yourself in the same way that someone else carries themselves. You may not have the popularity that many other people have. But for a surety, you have been called and you have been sent. There is a purpose that God has sent you where he sent you. Believe in God. Because if you be obedient to the word, if you be obedient to the call, God will do the miraculous. When God calls you and he sends you into an arena, he's preparing the place for you and you for the place. See, being chosen doesn't always come with instant confidence. And I'm a witness to that. Being chosen, you don't get the instantaneous confidence that you need to walk in. But you got to go back to the point of believing that you've been chosen. So, irregardless of what comes your way, irregardless of how things seem to be saying, God has called you. Believe in the point that the Father has called you. Believe in the point that He understands what you're going through and walk in it. Being chosen, as I said, doesn't always come with instantaneous confidence, but it comes with reliability upon the Father. So I have an affirmation for you to do as I do everything. And our affirmation on today is I don't feel ready, but I've already been chosen. I'm covered by God until the moment He reveals me. I won't mistake my covering for rejection. It's protection in its preparation. I'm going to say that again. I may not feel ready, but I've already chosen. I'm covered by God until the moment that He reveals me. I won't mistake my covering for rejection, but it's protection in its preparation. I want you to take a moment this week, souls that are listening to me on the line, and I want you to look at what God has already chosen and where you are afraid to step into it. I want you to write it down. I want you to pray about it. But most of all, I want you to be reminded that chosen doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It means that you're positioned. And to every soul on this line, once again, who's listening to me this morning and who's going to come back and listen to the replay, I want you to understand that even when you're covered, you are still called. Even when you're hidden by God, you are still His. And even in the eyes of heaven, you are still the one. I'm going to say it again to the souls that are on the line. Even when God is covering you, you are still called. Even when He is hiding you, you are still His. And even in the eyes of heaven, I want you to know on this morning that you are still the one. You're still the one that it was called. You're still the one that was chosen, but God could be hiding you for the Saul moment. Thank you for joining me on this morning. And on next week, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about hidden among the stuff. Until then, the souls that are listening to me on the line, be amazing on today and look forward to your Saul moment. Shalom.